"Grandpa, they're about to make you sign it. We have to leave right now." My granddaughter's fingers shook as she pulled me from the table. The wine kept coming. The smiles were too smooth. The manager glanced our way. In South End, a celebration turned into a crime.
Riverside Chop House glowed, the way South End always does on a Saturday, amber lights. Linen so crisp it whispered, the bar clinking like a metronome. Our small family dinner filled a table for 10. Faces I barely knew asked about cap rates and lease terms as if they'd studied my portfolio on the ride over. Every time I glanced down, my Pinot sat at the same generous line. I didn't remember lifting the glass. Sam's smile had edges. "To family," she said, "to new chapters." Mike kept the toasts rolling, easy patter, eyes sliding past mine toward the stairwell. A server hovered just inside my peripheral vision, always near my glass, always ready. Warmth pressed behind my eyes, not the slow glow of good wine, something looser around the edges. I steadied myself on a small thing, the etched ring around the salt cellar, tiny triangles marching in a circle. Focus on that, the room stops tilting. "Dad," Sam said sweetly, "don't rush out after the entree. The chef did a special dessert. 10 minutes. She nodded toward the staircase. "We also booked the private room upstairs, quieter for that little paperwork you mentioned." I hadn't mentioned any paperwork.
5 minutes, Mike added, laying a hand too close to my glass. "Couple of friends up there, great real estate attorneys. You'll like them." Across the table, Liv watched me like she was measuring wind against a candle. She leaned in, voice low and sure. "Don't drink that," she said. "Stand up." Her hand slipped to my sleeve. Her fingers were steady. Mine weren't. "Let's at least get you cake," Sam laughed, the pitch a shade too bright. "Everyone wants to say hello. It's a celebration." At the edge of the dining room, the manager, Anthony, his badge red, took everything in without making a scene. He tracked a server's path from the bar, glanced once at the ceiling camera, and moved on like nothing mattered. It did. "I'm getting some air," I said, voice even. Chair legs sighed. For a beat, the table froze, forks suspended, smiles stuck. Then the chatter rose too quickly, like a radio turned up to hide an argument. "Charlie, don't be silly," Mike called after me, light as oil. "We'll bring dessert to you. 5 minutes." Liv moved between his hand and my glass. "We're stepping out," she said, not a request. She threaded her arm through mine, the way she did when she was small and the world felt too busy, and we walked. We passed the bar, ice cracked in a shaker. The smell of seared steak and rosemary drifted over a low buzz of conversation. In the window glass, I caught our reflection, a tall man moving a fraction carefully, a young woman bracing him with more resolve in size. The warmth behind my eyes pushed again. Not age, I thought, not tonight. The host reached for the door. Cool air met us like a decision. Outside, the sounds reorganized themselves. Tires whispering on asphalt, a distant train horn, the hum of a transformer down the block. Liv didn't stop at the curb. She guided me along the side of the building, beyond the bright rectangle of our table framed in glass. "Keep going," she murmured, out of their sight. The lot sloped a touch. My knees negotiated the angle with more care than they should have needed. I knew my body. I knew when it was carrying something it hadn't asked for. We slipped into the shadow between 2 SUVs. Metal cooled my palm. Liv pulled out her phone. The screen lit her face, steady and pale. "I'll get a taxi," she said, already tapping. "We're not going back in." "What did you see?" My voice caught a little on the way out. I breathed through it, slow and level. She looked toward the windows. Inside, Sam laughed too loudly. Mike's head tilted over his phone. A server cleared plates that weren't finished. Farther back, Anthony spoke to a bartender, his eyes flicking once to the camera dome above the bar. 2 minutes, Liv said softly, eyes on the rideshare countdown. "We leave first, then I tell you everything." A night breeze came up from the street, lifting the edges of her hair. I listened to it, to the train, to the small, ordinary music of a city that doesn't care who owns what. Somewhere behind the glass, someone moved toward the staircase I had not agreed to climb. I set my back against the SUV and let the cool air do its work. I had made a lifetime of decisions with a clear head and a pencil stub in a pocket notebook. Tonight, the only decision that mattered was simple. I trusted my granddaughter.
The headlights of an approaching car washed across the lot and turned toward us.
The taxi rolled to a stop, headlamps cutting a clean line across the asphalt. Liv opened the rear door and guided me in, one palm steady at my elbow. She hit the 911 call before her seatbelt clicked. "Charlotte 911, what's your emergency?" "My grandfather was drugged at Riverside Chop House in South End," Liv said, voice crisp. "He's 69, he's lightheaded, we need a forensic blood draw." "What time was his last drink?" the dispatcher asked. "Within the last 15 minutes, I said. My own voice surprised me calm, but thinner at the edges. Wine that kept refilling without me asking. "Proceed to Atrium Health Carolinas Medical Center. Officers will meet you there. Do not consume food or drink. We are notifying units to secure video and the tableware at the restaurant." Liv's thumb pressed end. She turned to me. "No water," she said. "I know. It kills evidence." Outside, South End slid past the glow of patios, cyclists under string lights, a couple arguing softly as we paused at a red. I pulled my pocket notebook and did what I've done my whole life when something goes sideways. Wrote it down. 8:57 p.m., left table. 9:01, 911. 9:03, headed to CMC. My hand wasn't as steady as the pencil. "Tell me what you saw," I said, keeping my breath slow. Liv kept her eyes on the city sliding by. "Later, after we lock the evidence, Grandpa, I'm sorry I didn't get to you sooner." "You got to me in time," I said. The warmth behind my eyes pressed again, receded. Not wine, something else. We hit the ER bay at CMC, fluorescent bright after the restaurant's amber. A triage nurse met us at the door, already briefed. "Mr. Turner, this way. We're doing a forensic draw. No water, no rinsing." A room, a cuff, a tray. Gray top vials waited, labels blank, seals unbroken. She called out each step as she did it for the body cam on the CMPD officer who just slipped in behind her. "Time is 21:09, she said, glancing at a wall clock. "First draw. Labeling with patient, date of birth, time. Sealing, chain of custody form." She handed me a pen. "Sign here confirming you witnessed the labeling and sealing." The officer signed beneath me, printed Bennett, CMPD. They took a second set 10 minutes later, a baseline and a slope for whatever was in me. A doctor explained they'd run a broad sedative screen and lock the rest for the lab. His words came in clean, clipped lines, a good doctor on a busy night. I heard them and also heard, underneath, the quiet throb of the ER, the rubbery squeak of soles, the beep of a monitor down the hall, the dry rustle of a curtain pulled and set. Officer Bennett took my statement while the nurse labeled tubes. "Any recent disputes?" he asked, not unkindly. "Family," I said. "My daughter and her husband, money, 2 days ago." I described the vandalism, red paint, a broken mailbox, and the neighbor who'd heard an expensive engine at 2 in the morning. I gave names. Samantha Turner, Michael Hayes, Riverside Chop House, private dining room upstairs. They said there were attorneys they wanted me to meet. "Did you see anyone touch your glass?" Bennett asked. I saw a hand near it. I saw a smile that didn't reach eyes. I saw a manager's name tag that read Anthony and a glance toward a ceiling camera. I saw enough to know the room wasn't my friend. His radio cracked. "Unit 12 en route to Riverside," a voice said. "Advise manager to preserve table and barware. Request immediate copy of relevant video. System may overwrite at midnight." Bennett looked at me. "Do you know the manager's name?" "Anthony. Vega, I think," I said. He watched, quietly. "That helps," he said, already tapping notes into a tablet. "We're dispatching a unit to ask staff to hold your table, the bottle, and your glass. We'll need video from the bar and dining room tonight's date, 19:30 to 21:15. If that DVR cycles tonight, we can't afford to wait." The doctor returned with the first strip of preliminary results. "The screen flags a sedative class," he said, careful not to overreach. "We'll confirm specifics at the lab. The important part is we have your blood within the window." The window, the hour that makes or breaks the clean line from act to evidence. I wrote it down, 9:19, prelim positive for sedative class. Liv leaned a shoulder into mine, solid as a beam. "Grandpa, we're okay," she said, more conviction than question. Bennett's radio popped again. Unit 12 at Riverside, party still present, table partially cleared. The officer's jaw tightened a fraction. If they clear that glass, we'll have to rely solely on video and talks. I'm calling the watch commander to authorize a hold. Mr.
Turner, can you describe where you were seated? Corner banquette, third table from the windows, I said. My glass on the right, Pinot. Bottle had a red foil, white label with a black ridgeline. He nodded, already moving. We need that footage tonight, he said, halfway to the door. If we don't lock it in the next 30 minutes, the easiest proof you have walks out with the bus tubs.
48 hours earlier, late light lay clean across my Myers Park living room. The brass carriage clock on the mantel kept steady time. My pocket notebook and pencil sat beside it, as they always do when decisions need making. The door opened without a knock. Sam, first heels, perfume, purpose, then Mike with his practiced grin. "Dad, this is a once-in-a-lifetime deal," Sam said, dropping a glossy folder on my table. "AI Logistics, last-mile delivery, window closes Friday." "How much?" I asked. "200, she said, like it was nothing. Short-term bridge, we repay within the quarter." "Show me the plan," I said. "We don't have the deck with us," Mike said quickly, "but the team is strong, solid backers." "Names." A glance between them. "You're missing the point," Sam said. "Markets move fast, we need agility." "Agility isn't due diligence," I said. "Remind me, Mike, crypto mining?" "Timing," he muttered. 25, I noted. "Smoothie franchise?" "The location." 38, import car deposit? Silence. 52. Sam's smile thinned. "You always cherry-pick the failures. What about the wins?" "I'm still waiting to see one," I said.
Turner Properties wasn't built on Friday windows. It was built on 7 a.m. inspections and heat that works in January. She leaned in. "You're sitting on all that equity while your family struggles. Don't you want to keep this in the family?" "Keeping it in the family means keeping it intact," I said, "not stripping it for parts." She tried a softer pitch. "You mentioned updating your LLC. We know a lawyer who can streamline, make transition easy." "I didn't mention any updates," I said. "You're almost 70, she pressed. "At some point, someone needs to take care of you. We're offering to shoulder that." "I take care of myself," I said. "I always have." Color rose in her cheeks. "Times have changed. You don't understand how fast opportunities move. If you don't help us, don't expect us to be there when you can't handle the properties anymore." There it was. "I'm not funding anything without a plan, audited numbers, and names I can call," I said. "If you had them, you'd lead with them. The answer is no." "You're being selfish," she snapped. "Selfish is burning other people's money to keep your hands warm," I said. Mike shoved back his chair. "We're trying to help you modernize, Mr. Turner. Mr. Turner. You're trying to use my name to borrow against things you don't understand," I said. "We're done." She scooped the folder and her purse. The door closed harder than necessary. At the curb, their dark sedan idled with the smug purr of an expensive engine. It revved once, too loud for the block, then slid away. I poured out the coffee, opened my notebook, and wrote, "Asked $200K by Friday. No plan. Names withheld. Threat about care. Engine revved." Then I set the pencil down next to the clock and let the house settle. The next morning, after Sam and Mike stormed out, the house woke before I did. Sun tapped the oak leaves, sifted light across the floor, and stopped at the door where the damage waited. My mailbox lay twisted in the grass like a broken hinge. Across the white-paneled door, a word in wet red paint bled downward, each letter dragging its feet. Selfish. The air carried the sharp, sugary tang of solvent and a sweetness that didn't belong to morning. Tulips along the walk were leveled, petals mashed into bright pulp. Boot prints crossed the beds heel to toe, deliberate as a marching drill. Myers Park pretended not to stare. A jogger slowed, then found a new rhythm. A terrier chose a different shrub. The oaks said nothing. "Mr. Turner?" Mrs. Thompson called from her porch, robes cinched, mug steaming. I heard a car idling around too, not one of those little buzzers, something plush. Thought about calling, then it rolled off. "Thank you," I said. "That helps." I didn't linger on the word on my door. Paint shouldn't have that kind of leverage. Inside, the house had shifted by a hair. A frame had slipped from a nail and knocked the brass carriage clock my wife loved. A hairline crack ran from the glass edge toward the two, catching the light like a struck match. I touched it with one finger and felt the night's meanness travel from the porch to my chest. I called the non-emergency line. Vandalism, I said. Mailbox, front door, flower beds. Likely between midnight and dawn. The operator took the details, asked me not to clean anything, and dispatched a unit. By the time my coffee cooled, a young CMPD officer walked the steps with a camera. Chirp, mailbox. Chirp, door. Chirp, boot prints. Any recent disputes, she asked, kind but practiced. Family, I said. Daughter, son-in-law, money, yesterday. I gave names, Samantha Turner, Michael Hayes, and the short version of a long pattern. I mentioned the engine it too, the way it idled like it owned the street. Do you have cameras, she asked. Not yet, I said, by Thursday. She slid a case number across on a card. We'll increase patrols, document everything, keep any messages. After she left, I made the second round of calls, my maintenance crew for the door and mailbox. The security company for quotes, they spoke in focal lengths and cloud backups. I translated to porch, driveway, and every angle that catches a hand near a knob. The paint bled into pink under solvent, rumor working into wood. The new mailbox stood too bright, an optimism I didn't feel. My phone buzzed. Sam. Hey, Dad, heard there was some vandalism on your street. You okay? Maybe we should talk, start fresh. The concern sat on the text like a borrowed sweater. Before I could answer, another ping. A calendar invite, Mike's birthday, Riverside Chop House, Saturday at 7. Small family dinner, the note said. Liv will be there. I looked at the cleaned door, pale and imperfect, at the thin crack on the clock that caught the noon sun like a signature. I thought of Mrs. Thompson hearing the plush idol at 2, of the officer's camera chirps, of Sam's voice yesterday, soft until it wasn't, almost 70. I opened my pocket notebook. 2 a.m., car idling, Mrs. T. Boot prints through tulips, red paint, selfish, mailbox twisted, clock glass cracked, CMPD report at, cameras scheduled Thursday. Then, invite, Riverside, Sat 7, Liv will be there. I am not much for omens, but some patterns don't need superstition. A hard ask, a hard night, a soft invitation. A door gets painted, a mask gets repainted. I accepted the invite. I would go because my granddaughter asked. I would go light, no checkbook, no documents, nothing anyone could slide across linen and call a favor. I would sit where I could see the room and the stairs. I would keep my pencil sharp and my trust narrowed to one person. Another buzz. See you Saturday, Sam wrote. So glad we're moving forward. I ran my thumb along the clock's thin crack. Forward is a matter of direction, not intention. Back in the present, 2 days after the ER, one long night of notes, I sat across from Sarah Johnson with Little Sugar Creek flashing silver beyond her window. Monday light turned her desk into grid lines. Order. Exactly what I needed. We secure the house before we chase the thief, she said. Asset protection first. In minutes, dual authorization on transfers, alerts over 1,000, a temporary hold on membership interest changes, notices to registered agents. I signed a self-imposed rule, no structural moves for 30 days without counsel. The scanner chimed. Each chime felt like a latch set. Now, the people, Sarah said. You mentioned a veterinary sedative. Emily Parker, I said. Liv told me last night she overheard her mother on the phone weeks ago with a vet clinic friend named Emily, helpful with prescriptions. The name clicked when we started listing access points. Good, Sarah said. Clinic logs don't lie. We'll subpoena controlled substance records and text history. Have Liv memorialize what she heard, date, time, phrases in a signed note. And the papers waiting upstairs, she asked. David Reed, I said. Sam calls him a lawyer who streamlines transitions. He's fast, loose. We'll demand any drafts with your name and the metadata trail. She didn't look up. The architect of the grab? Rob Lewis, financial planner with a nose for other people's equity. We'll put a PI on all 3, Sarah said. Phones, emails, patterns. No accusations, only documentation. She paused. Sam. Debt, I said, balances that never drop, a car leased to be seen in, private school payments, conferences that look like vacations, a staged house with deferred repairs.
She plans in future tense. She's afraid of being ordinary. Not an excuse, a map. Fear explains, Sarah said. It doesn't legalize. She slid new forms across. You said she holds your medical POA. Only medical, I said, not anymore. I revoked it and named 2 trusted friends in sequence, signed HIPAA releases and a physician notice. Necessary and clean. The scanner chimed again. Victims, she said, if she's been skimming elderly clients, daylight, carefully. I made a list, I said, handing over 18 names with odd account shifts gathered from public filings and years of coffees.
She read, and I saw the pattern land. Anonymous packets, she said. Pure documents, no adjectives. Let audits do the talking. The DA wants facts, not fireworks. I'm building a record, I said. Then let's build. By the 3rd pot of coffee, we had a plan measured in hours, not months. My phone hummed with a Charlotte number I didn't know. I answered. Mr. Turner, Anthony Vega, Riverside Chop House. Restaurant noise ghosted behind his voice. We retain footage for 30 days. The bar cams mirror to a backup. I pulled Saturday's window before it could be wiped. Does it show the glass? I asked. It shows hands, he said, and timing. Come with your attorney. We'll do this by the book. I looked at Sarah. She was already packing her bag. Chain of custody, she said. Affidavit from Mr. Vega. Exact timestamps. Export hash. We walk it straight to the DA. On the way out, I tucked my pocket notebook into my jacket. Names and arrows filled the newest page. Emily, clinic logs, texts, source lives overheard call. David, drafts, metadata. Rob, proposals, client lists. Sam, orchestration, bank movements. Mike, proximity to glass, video. I have lived by ledgers, not hunches. Ledgers built my life. Ledgers would defend it. We hit the elevator. The doors slid closed. For the first time in days, the world tilted in my favor. Anthony met us at the side entrance, keys in hand, eyes clear. Office is this way, he said, threading us past prep noise and the low thunder of a dishwasher. Since Saturday, no one's touched the system but me. His back office was barely larger than a closet. A small monitor wall, a DVR under the desk, a safe, a ledger ruled in tidy columns. Sarah set her briefcase down. We'll do this by the book, she said. You as custodian of records. Affidavit, timestamps, chain of custody. May we see 1930 to 2115. Anthony keyed in commands. The screen split. Top left, the bar. Top right, a wide dining suite with our table. Bottom, a view of the stair landing. He scrolled to 2417. There I was, my glass on the right, Pinot catching the light. The server set the bottle down and walked away. At 24:04:23, Mike's hand drifted into the edge of frame, palm, wrist, a still beat over my glass, then a small flick of movement and his hand withdrew. The dining camera caught Sam watching him, her face smoothed into politeness. Back 5 seconds, Sarah said, quarter speed. We watched it again. The proof sat in numbers burned into the corner of the screen. System logs? She asked. Anthony opened them. User sessions, access times, the NTP sync at the top of each hour. Camera 4 is 2 seconds fast, he said. I'll note the offset. Sarah called Officer Bennett on speaker. We're at Riverside with the manager. We have relevant footage. Please supervise export and seal the media. 5 minutes, Bennett said. Don't export until I arrive. We'll hash on site. Anthony placed a new USB 3.0 drive, still in sealed plastic, on the desk. I keep a few for civil subpoenas, he said. Didn't expect to use one this week. Bennett arrived with a small kit. Evidence bags, tamper tape, a write blocker, forms. He took Anthony's statement, full name, title, custodianship, then had Sarah draft an affidavit. Anthony read, signed, and initialed screenshot printouts frozen at 20:04:17 and 23 from both camera angles. Export the clip and the surrounding hour, Bennett said. Native format and a standard copy. Include system logs, camera map, and your NTP settings. Then we'll generate an independent hash. Anthony broke the USB seal, mounted it, and exported. First the native.dav files, then an MP4. He printed the export log, date, camera IDs, file sizes, system checksums. Bennett connected his write blocker, ran an SHA-256 on both files, and wrote the hash strings in block letters on the property form and the evidence bag. He sealed the drive under tamper tape and had Anthony and Sarah initial the tape. CMPD property receipt 2384117, Bennett said, tearing off the top copy and handing it to Anthony. You'll get the second after booking. Sarah glanced at the stair camera. At 20:43:09, Sam looked toward the landing, thumbed her phone. At 20:43:22, a suited man with a slim briefcase slipped upstairs. Freeze, zoom, she said. The lobby directory's glass gave us a sliver of reflection. A nameplate just legible. David Reed, PLLC. That ties it, Sarah murmured, upstairs and down. Bennett ended a call. ADA Lauren Price wants to see this now, he said. We'll book the media and walk it over. She's drafting warrants, phones, devices, the sedative source, and any premises for the planned signing. The ER talks prelim supports probable cause. Anthony locked the DVR and signed one more note certifying the original footage remained unaltered and retained. He handed Sarah a printed camera layout with the 2-second offset marked in ink. Thank you, I said. He met my eyes. People come here to celebrate, he said, not to be harmed. Outside, the afternoon felt harder, the light flatter. We followed Bennett to CMPD. In property, a technician scanned the barcode, verified the SHA-256 against the printout, and slid the bagged drive into a locker. Bennett stamped our copy of the receipt. The building's noise seemed to drop half a notch. We crossed to the DA's office. Ada Price watched the clip twice, jaw set, eyes checking timestamps like a metronome. This, with the prelim talks and your statements, is enough, she said. Warrants are going up now. Printers answered. A clerk arrived with a blue folder and left with signatures. Minutes later, Price looked up and nodded. Signed. Bennett's radio crackled with motion units en route. Sarah closed her briefcase. We've got our lever, she said. Now we push. I thought of the 18 elderly clients on my list and the 6 lenders Mike had courted with my name. The truth is heavy, but it travels. Tonight, I said, we send the packets. By dusk, the packets were lined up on my table, 18 for Sam's elderly clients, 6 for Mike's lenders, no adjectives, only copies, statements, transfer trails, signatures that didn't belong. The courier scanned each envelope and left. Gravity was set. The phone rang at 5:41. Mr. Turner, Margaret Chen, I received documents showing withdrawals I never authorized. I told her to call Pinnacle's compliance line, request an emergency audit, and pull 18 months of history. Others are calling, she said. They were. A retired teacher, a widower in Ballantyne, a Navy vet in Mint Hill, each with the same pattern. I logged names, times, referrals, compliance, CMPD financial crimes, ADA Price's office. Harold checked in. Need hands? Not yet, I told him, but I might route vendor calls his way. At 6:42, a lender called, brisk, a line of credit tied to my guarantee. They were calling the note. You should, I said. You aren't the only one. By 7, Pinnacle suspended Sand pending audit. An internal memo urged her clients to schedule reviews. A cautious headline appeared online. Local advisor faces questions after clients flag discrepancies. I ignored blocked numbers. CMPD moved fast. Bennett texted, executing warrants now. 15 minutes later, in custody. Ada Lauren Price called, calm, phones and devices seized. The veterinary clinic is cooperating. We have a preliminary sedative paper trail. We'll take Liv's statement tomorrow on what she overheard and what she saw at dinner. You did the right thing. Liv stood at the island, hands around a glass she didn't drink. Her phone lit. Samantha Turner. It rang, stopped, rang again. She answered on speaker. Liv, what have you done? Your grandfather is spinning. Mom, Liv said, steady. I watched Mike's hand over Grandpa's glass. I heard you on the phone with Emily from the clinic. I told the police. Silence. Then the turn. You think you're better than me? You've destroyed your family. You did that, Liv said. The line clicked dead. She wrote the call's gist in my notebook, time, phrases, and signed. At 9:12, a courier brought a single envelope from the jail. Sam's handwriting. I am sorry for what we tried to do. You were right. Please take care of Liv. No excuses. Only the sentence she wouldn't say in my dining room. I filed it with the record. Outside, Myers Park was ordinary.
Inside, the truth had started to move on its own. Sentencing came on a clear morning, the kind Charlotte saves for clean breaks. In the courtroom's hush, Ada Price read the counts and the judge measured them out. Sam stood small beside her attorney, chin lifted, eyes rimmed but dry. Mike stared at the table. The verdicts landed with the sound of a gavel and the feel of a door closing. Prison terms measured in years. Restitution numbers neither of them could meet. Phones and devices would not be going home. Choices had consequences. The room made that plain. Emily from the clinic surrendered her credential. David Reed faced bar discipline that read like a disbarment in waiting. Rob Lewis found his access to other people's money suddenly narrower than a paper cut. The conspiracy didn't just end. It unraveled thread by thread in public daylight. After court, I didn't celebrate. I walked the few blocks under trees that still held their shade, and let the air file the edges off the day. Back home, I set my pocket notebook beside the brass carriage clock. The crack in its glass caught the noon sun. I'd thought about fixing it. I kept it instead. Some reminders do better work in plain view. 2 afternoons later, Liv knocked and came in with the same careful energy she had in the restaurant lot. Healthier now, determined. "I want to work," she said. "Learn the business from the ground up. No shortcuts." "We start with the basics," I told her, handing her an extra key to the office and a simple binder labeled tenants. "Maintenance requests, rent ledgers, lease renewals. You'll ride along on inspections, ask questions, and carry a notepad." We drove to the first duplex I ever bought, a small brick place near Plaza Midwood, the paint finally right after years of not quite right. The afternoon smelled like cut grass and new caulk. Liv ran her hand along the railing I'd replaced in a lean year and smiled in the quiet way that matters. "This is where it started," I said, "one honest lease at a time." She nodded. "And this is where it continues, the right way." On the drive back, I saw the city as a ledger, streets and names and balances carried forward. Some lines you close, some you keep. At my desk, I wrote the last entry in this file. Sentences entered, assets intact, successor identified. Then I closed the notebook and slid it to the side. I have always built my life with pencils and daylight. That won't change. Tomorrow we'll walk the properties. We'll knock on doors, fix what's broken, and keep our promises. A final truth: blood is not the same as trust. Family is anyone who proves faithful when the stakes rise. Hold that line, and even hard betrayal stories can light the way for those behind you. Build circles with neighbors, honest peers, and good law. Let their strength carry you through the storm. I believe God sees what we can't, God judges what we shouldn't, and God heals what we can't fix alone. Of all betrayal stories, the ones we remember teach us to choose people by character, not convenience. And as betrayal stories fade into memory, keep the lesson, not the bitterness. If this touched you, add your thoughts in the comments and share it forward with care.